Hey, what's up, you guys? I hope you're having an amazing day because the topic that I'm going to be talking about is not so amazing. It's something that a lot of us may be dealing with this, like what's written on the title below. It's about toxic family members. A lot of people are, you know, kind of dealing with it. So I decided to, why not talk about it, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So, first off, let's just start with what is a toxic person? The ones who always have a word to discourage you to have an opinion, discourage you to speak up, discourage you not only just to discourage you, but someone who would be very unsupportive, who constantly criticize. There is good criticism and there is a bad criticism. So if we're going to talk about a bad criticism, it's someone who is constantly disagreeing, constantly. They just basically want to manipulate you into becoming the person that they want you to become. It's just basically a person who wants to mend you or to build you to a character in their own perspective, in their own preference about what they think you should be. Now, in between family members, it is so normal that we all have arguments and disagreements with family members. It is so normal to have. That's what's make us an individual. Now, there's another toxic relationship, basically abuse. There's all kinds of abuse. There is emotional abuse, there's physical abuse, there is also sexual abuse, there is all kinds of abuse. Now, having a good and loving home is a place where you feel safe. You are allowed, you are encouraged to be yourself, to speak up for yourself, to know and live up to the terms that you want in your own life. Now, the toxic relationship is quite the opposite. They wouldn't allow you to be who you wanted to be because it ruins their sense of perspective and what they think you should be. That's number one. The other one is when they would constantly discourage you and criticize you to the life choices that you want for your own life. They are the ones who discourage you to speak up, to have your own opinion, basically live up to their own expectations. There is basically a different kind of a toxic relationship. There is like an abuse. There is also discrimination, there is manipulation, there is verbal violence or any kind of violence. There is a sense that violence is considered normal. And because, why is it so important to have loving or a supportive family? The most disturbed people out there usually have dysfunctional relationships with their family most of the time. So that's what I always notice. If somebody's suffering from anxiety, if somebody, most especially if it's depression or some traumatic events, or they would be reactive to something, most definitely there is something going on in their house or in their own home that discourages them to do things that they should do or what's good for them. Sometimes it becomes, let's say, violence. Our behavior, actions, our thoughts usually were developed depending upon our experiences with our relationships, most especially the relationships that we grew up with or that we really care about. Developed depending upon how good or bad your relationships are, especially inside your home. Emotional neglect is actually one of the signs they may be toxic. It may not be the thing. Maybe sometimes they're too busy in doing something and they're not really that toxic, but that's just one of the signs that you would know they could be that toxic. It's because they were not emotionally there for you as a child. Now, the reason why this is so important to be very emotionally available to your child, or not only the child. I'm not talking about parents, but really just family member. most of the time our minds are developed depending upon our emotional experiences to certain situations that we have in our life. So for example, let's just say I I never had an emotional support from my parents. And what happened is that right now, every person, or let's just say a person that I would think that I trust, or I would think that they understand me completely, what will happen is that it will result to clinginess. Clinginess. There is a sense that you don't even respect yourself anymore. It's because you want that person, you want validation to that person. You shouldn't find any validation to anybody for your emotional securities. If you have an untrained mind, what will happen is that it will result into attachment problems. You will become too attached to that person, you will become so clingy to that person, you will basically have a lack of boundaries and respect to yourself. And there's another thing also. It can also result to detachment. Now, some people who are experiencing some emotional neglect or no emotional support, so all of a sudden they would completely detach themselves to everybody around them because their mentality is that's at least what I know. So now they're thinking like I'm not worthy of being understood. Nobody even cared about me when I was younger. What makes me think that somebody would care about me now? That kind of mentality is going to happen, especially if there was a lack of support, lack of discouragement. That is going to result into aloofness and emotional avoidance. When you become an adult, you will become emotionally distant. There's a lot of people that I know who experience some emotional neglect. They grew up almost just becoming like one of their parents too. Emotional neglect that they get from their parents, then they grow up into someone who is also emotionally distant. Now, it can also now because of that experience, then suddenly you put that on your partner, you put that in your friends or anything, and suddenly once you felt some sort of an intense emotion into something. Let's just say negative emotion. Maybe you're just angry about something, or maybe you're just feeling um, embarrassed about something that you have experienced in your life that you would want to say it to anybody. It's because you felt like nobody will understand you. Nobody would know what you're going through. You felt like nobody's going to be listening anyways. Just because you experienced that makes you think the world outside is going to be the same thing. Now you're becoming emotionally detached. You don't want to share anything. You don't want to be so vulnerable in front of everybody. It's because of what you experienced when you were younger. So another sign is that they are extremely controlling over you. Now, we some of us might experience that as well. Like we experienced one of our family members that they were so controlling over us. They're controlling about the way maybe we talk, maybe the way we walk, maybe the way we wear, or maybe the way we really think about a certain topic. Most of the time when we care about people or when we're used with their actions, we would really think, what, it's normal. Just let it go. There's a big difference between you accepting their action and forgive them, but you would not accept their action. And you need to be very clear about that, and you need to know and let them know that that kind of behavior is something that you will not accept. What is considered toxic? Easy. Abuse. Emotional, physical, or sexual abuse. Another one. Discrimination. Constant criticism. Now, there's a big difference between a good criticism and a bad one. And also, what's considered toxic is when you figure out someone who is manipulating you. Now, it's to some people, it's not very easy to figure out if someone is really manipulating you because they're so smooth about it. You wouldn't even know that you're being manipulated at some point, especially if you were younger at your age. Kids really are just being kids. We do not know. We take things as it is. You tell us something, we'll believe you. Anything, all of us, anything that we experienced during our childhood is really what we become today. It's not like they meant to do that. It's just that all their insecurity, you would literally wear their emotional baggage. So basically, when it comes to controlling or to control people or one of your family members, thinking what I want is for you to understand that I want nothing but the best for you. Now, this can really be very tricky. This is where the manipulation comes into play. This is where you're going to be experiencing somebody would dictate you into something, would tell you something that they think it's good for you, but really it's just good for them of what they think is good for you, if you get my point. The problem from controlling, it really can have a psychological effect to some people. The effect of being controlled in whatever aspect you have in your life can give you a hard time deciding really what you want for your life. It's because you're so used somebody's taking control over you. And that's one thing. The other one it's going to be is you can be controlling yourself. Because you do not have a certain freedom to be who you really are, suddenly you rebel. Suddenly you want to do something that you never have done before. Suddenly you do not want to take no for an answer, and you don't want anybody to tell you what to do. Sometimes that could be good or bad depending upon how you use it. Here's another thing also. When there is constant argument, unresolved issues with themselves, and then they put that issue into someone else without actually solving anything. Like, you know those people who are so dramatic that they just cause drama around the house, just find any problem that they have and put it onto you? Yeah, we know that people. We know that kind of person. So that is actually the most hardest thing to deal with too, especially in the younger years. Like if you were a young child and you experienced that kind of abuse or conflict or argument and constant back and forth type of argument, most of the time you would either become antisocial or maybe develop some sort of depression, and you felt like you were the ones to be blamed with. Now, every certain fight that happens in the household would think you would literally take that blame to yourself. And now what happened is you're going to turn out like a person like you could put your blame into yourself all the time. Or, like I said, what you see sometimes is what you're going to reflect in yourself, and what you're going to reflect in yourself, it will become a habit. It will become part of your character without you noticing that. It's just because these kind of environments are so normal to you that you inherit that kind of character and habits and show and reflect that to the world outside, and even to your next, let's say, the next generations, basically. The next one is pathological household. It is basically when you feel like you're growing too fast or you are forced to grow too fast. You, the one, become the parent instead of the parent does their role. Yeah, that is what we call another one that is toxic. Like, for example, parents, there are parents who are alcoholics, have drug abuse or violent, and or they do not even know how to control themselves. So the child himself or herself becomes a parent. Or let's say one of your parents tells, let's just say that you have other siblings. They will basically be telling you to take care of them, feed them, watch them, change the diapers, or anything, something like that. Like, do not know what is childhood, because you were being forced to grow up too soon. And this is what we call it parentification or pathological household. This is where things becomes the opposite. A parent becomes a child becomes a parent. So it could be your aunt, your uncle, doesn't matter. I'm just putting parents as just a preference. It's because that's the closest to us. What's the saddest part about it is once you're getting used to it, or you consider that normal, you will start to become the caretaker in every relationship that you have. Like basically, your friends, your partner, you felt like you have the duty to take care of them. That oftentimes you would neglect your needs, your basic needs. Sometimes there are people, have you seen those people? Sometimes you want them to really relax and really take care of themselves. They're like basically used to be the caretaker. They would cook, they would clean, they would take care of you. They will put priority in everybody else's needs before themselves. It can lead to poor identity development, unassertiveness, and incapable to develop healthy interpersonal relationships with others. The next toxic relationships or family relationship is the role of a dominant and a submissive. There are a lot of family members that are like that from amongst the 10 family members, there's at least one or two that is the dominant one. And that, what do you mean by dominant one, is that they don't consider anybody's opinion. They don't care about your feelings. They don't care about what effect that it has on the person. Basically, they are the dominant authoritative figure. They are the ones who make the people or their family member or their children feel voiceless and powerless. Dominance can create the most low self-esteem kids, and it can go up to adulthood. A lot of times that when I met somebody who has very, very, very low self-esteem because one of their parents was very dominating. They do not allow you to have a voice. They do not want you to be powerful than them. They would demand respect from you. They felt like they are the authoritative figure and they do have the rights. So some people experience that. It makes you feel very voiceless, makes you feel powerless. It makes you do not even have a word to speak on it. You cannot have your own identity. You cannot speak up for yourself. It's either can make you have low self-esteem or someone who is super, super dominant and you do not want anybody to dominate you. That could have either ways. You could be super arrogant or someone who just have low self-esteem. That's basically it. Another one thing is actually violence. So violence does not really mean physical abuse. Really, it does not mean that. It could mean emotional abuse. It could mean sexual abuse. It could mean psychological abuse, spiritual abuse, legal abuse. It doesn't matter. It also counts as abuse when family members see or hear the violence. You may not be the one who experienced that violence, but you hear it, you see it. It is within your household. That's still considered violent and domestic abuse or domestic violence. Even if you are not directly physically abused, it is still counts as violence. It can really create depression. It can create post-traumatic stress disorder. It can make you, because of this kind of abuse or because of this kind of environment, it can make you lean towards addiction, drugs, and alcohol. And kids these days, or not even kids, let's just say adult, people my age too, people older than me, doesn't matter. If sometimes because of a very violent and abusive household, addiction, drugs, and alcohol is they would think that this is the only way that it can cure them or forget about that kind of experiences. I mean, I get it. Like, alcohol can make you forget things. Drugs can make you forget things. These kind of things, it's a way to escape from all the environment, the toxic environment that you're dealing at home. You feel these kind of, because you are so vulnerable, you got nothing to do, that the only thing that you can do with, or you can deal with, is actually alcohol and drugs. Or another sign of a family dysfunction is exploitation. Now, what is exploitation? It's like the feeling that your life purpose is to serve your family. They are the types who would only show affection or the value when you give them financial support or emotional support, like emotional needs. Yes, this is still an abuse, and yes, this is still a sign of a family dysfunction. Healthy adults are able to take care of their own needs without needing someone to provide it for them constantly. Now, that kind of behavior is very common in the Asian community. I think it's because basically some Asian family values are set too high that there is a sense of need or a must to serve your family. You would have to serve them financially, and it is an obligation. It's not like you would do it out of love. No, it is an obligation for you to do it. A family member should be there for you. They should be there for you to support you, but it shouldn't demand any of your time, any of your effort for you to do that or to serve them. It should not feel obligated. A healthy family is a unit of support and love, but it's not a constant source of obligation. Another one is the difference between discipline and punishment. A lot of people are getting confused from that we do not know if are we being disciplined or are we just being punished for the heck of punishment. Yeah, we all been grounded, we've all been punished at some point. We're all kids that makes a lot of mistakes. Discipline is actually giving you a sense of lesson. Like, let's just say, you should wake up in the morning and go to school and get dressed, have your breakfast, leave to school, come home, you have to study and do your homework and stuff like that. This kind of discipline is because there is a good purpose behind that. Now, a punishment is something like you're just being punished for being punished. There is no lesson to be taught behind it. There is no reason. It's like what we call a nonsense type of punishment. A punishment that you take that does not make any sense. They just probably don't like it, or they're just feeling like, oh, they're having a bad day, so everything you do to them or anything that you do, you're getting punished. Let's just say you make them a meal, you make them dinner and whatever is thing. It tastes bad, you're getting punished. I mean, it does not make any sense that you're getting punished over a meal that you cooked that you couldn't cook well. Toxic punishment happens if there are no lessons to be taught. Toxic punishment is another form of control. Another sign of toxic relationship is also, or toxic family member, is constant judgment, constant criticism. Like for example, they would be constantly asking you, when are you gonna get married? Are you sure that this is a job that you would want it? It's really not doing anything for you. Or no, it's not gonna earn much money for you. You're not gonna be anything. It's because you didn't actually graduate from college, so it's gonna be very hard for you to get a work. It's going to be very hard for you to get a job. You're not going to go anywhere in life if you don't have that college degree. Or are you doing something new in your life? Or when are you going to be having kids? Constantly criticizing you, constantly judging you of the life choices that you make for you. So it is actually normal for family members to criticize you a little bit, but at least this is for something that they would want the best for you. And if you make a little mistake, they can give you a simple advice. It's up to you to follow it, but they would simply advise you something on what they think is best for you. So that is just like a healthy criticism, thinking that this might be very good for you instead. But a toxic family member, that is on another level, that is really on another level. They would basically belittle you. They would look at you down just because you made that certain decision you make in your life. That's one of the toxic relationships. Now, the worst thing about having this kind of experience, it will always make you feel you're not good enough. It will always make you feel incompetent and unsuccessful. And it's like whatever you do in your life, whatever you decide in your life is not just good. It's not good enough for them. You would always feel like a failure because you will never impress them. All what you'll be thinking about, because they are your family member, you would be thinking, you know what, I want to make them proud. I want to make them happy for me. I want to do something that for once they would be happy for me. You would be thinking, and then that can result to somebody who is to low self-esteem. You may be good in something, but you don't really think that you're good enough. You may be good and people might think, oh, you're doing a good job. Okay, you're talented, or you're smart, or whatever it is. But because of what your parents have told you or whatever your family member has told you, they belittle you. They would tell you, you know what, you would be better if you get married, or you know what, it would be better if you take that course, or you know what, you should be dropping out of school so that you can just support your family. They would think, okay, my son or my daughter has graduated and became an engineer. You will be perfect if you do this and this and that. If you become this, if you become that. But if you're not going to fit into that criteria, then they will be thinking that there's something wrong with you.